There's more to come. I thought this was a good time to focus on how those things that you have learned in your English classes are going to help you as you navigate through this new chapter in your life because, well, the English department's awesome. And buckle in, because there's going to be a copious amount of allusions to a lot of pieces of literature to which you have, and which some of you have not read. So, as I look at the selections I have had the pleasure of exploring with you over these 4 years, there are two conspicuous messages that I feel will help you in your life. The first is, sometimes you aren't going to win. Hopefully, those of you who've had the pleasure of having me in class aren't shocked by my decision not to be ludicrously optimistic in my speech. My vocal dislike for Twilight, Nicholas Sparks, and Titanic might have been your first indication that that was going to happen. To Kill a Mockingbird provides us with a perfect exemplar for this lesson. Atticus Finch and his family go through great pains and ostracized by a contemptuous segment of society as he defends a black man accused of rape. And as he goes through all of that, he's rewarded for his efforts by a virulent jury taking 10 minutes to convict a man that is clearly and obviously innocent. We also see this as Santiago spends 3 days on the ocean bringing in a puissant marlin only to have it eaten by sharks. Sorry, spoilers, I guess, for those that couldn't muster the energy to read that 127-page, really large font novel. Or Eliza Allen, seeing that she was gullible and the traveling salesman had indeed given her false praise as she sees her prized chrysanthemums tossed on the side of the road. Or, can't forget a minor shout out to my communication class, having your favorite survivor voted off the island while cast members with farcically less game are still in the hunt for that $1 million. The second lesson that stuck out to me is that society will judge you harshly if you are different. Hester Prynne is our poster woman for this lesson. We learn from this novel, Scarlet Letter in case you didn't pick up on that one, as well as from The Crucible, the way in which society, in both of these instances, symbolized by the Puritans, will outcast and squash those whose views are discordant to their own. It would be easy to just say, Puritans. What are you going to expect, right, Brit Lit class? But don't forget Emily Dickinson, a significantly major poet of the 1800s who saw fewer than 20 of her roughly 1,700 poems published because they were so far ahead of her time in the form that they were written. Okay. Probably doesn't help that she's what we would call today a crazy Catwoman. And in the words of Lisa Simpson, Emily Dickinson lived alone and wrote some of the most beautiful poetry the world has ever known, then went crazy as a loon. But still, society wasn't ready to appreciate her poetry until many decades later, and she was dead before that appreciation came. So some of you right now might be reconsidering your desire to have me speak today because this might seem a little heavy on what is truly a convivial day. So, big finish. There are two things you need to remember during this exam that is your life in order for your English class experience to not be a complete buzzkill. First of all, remember Lincoln and Zach's lucid messages. Let's take Bilbo Baggins as another example. He gets done signing a very lengthy contract, which, says he will get a share of what is likely to be an enormous treasure, but which also makes it pretty clear that his death is likely imminent. And rather than running away from that, like most hobbitses would, he runs with temerity and incandescent glee out of the Shire because he gets to go on an adventure. Be Bilbo in your life. Experience the wonder and the adventure that is around you daily. Exact from life all that it has to offer. Secondly, The Great Gatsby gives us hope in all of this. Yeah, I know. That's a bummer of an ending. But we're going to move a few chapters back before that to see what Fitzgerald was really trying to tell us. Daisy tells Gatsby during that last party that they have together in New York, "I love you now. Isn't that enough?" Now, the bummer of an ending comes because it wasn't enough for Gatsby. He always wanted more. His foible was that he was never happy with what he had. Don't make your lives miserable because you set unrealistic goals and expectations for yourself and then find yourself coming short of those. Sure, shoot for the stars. Change the world. A lot of you are going to do that. But if you come short of that ever, you don't need to see that as a failure. The American Film Institute voted Atticus Finch the #1 hero of American film. You remember that guy we talked about who prevented a clearly innocent man from going to prison and ultimately, spoilers again, being shot while he was in prison? He's the #1 hero, not because of that really a bummer of an outcome, but because of the way that he conducted himself through that process. He always did what he knew what was right. He had the respect of an enormous amount of people in that community, and his children were wonderful as well, and at least in my mind, because I'm an English nerd and I think about these things, they went on after that novel to do fantastic things in the world as well. And Hester Prynne, although she faced a lot of hatred from her peers due to her sin, did not become exasperated, but stayed true to herself and to her emotions, and she made it through okay. While Dimsdale proved malleable to the will of society and was not true to himself, and that literally killed him. Emerson summed it up as, trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. Be who you know you need to be. If I leave you with anything, I hope it's that after these 4 years. Do what you know is right. That is what is important. Not the school that you go to, not the major you decide on, not the job that you take. It is being true to yourself that will give meaning and purpose to your life regardless of what life throws at you, and I'm sorry, it's going to throw stuff at you that you won't like. And when it's hard to keep that attitude in the midst of all that, remember that in the face of incredible racism and adversity, rather than be querulous, that was the 22nd vocab word, rather than be querulous, Langston Hughes knew that eventually they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osowski. Prima Voce will now perform You'll Be in My Heart under the direction of Mrs. Allison Zeitler. Thank you, Mrs. Zeitler and the choir members. At this time, I'd like to introduce our principal, Mr. Dan Chernagel.
Thank you, Lincoln. On behalf of the graduates, as well as our staff and Board of Education, I want to both welcome you and thank you for attending today's graduation ceremony for this the Ripon Area School District graduating class of 2013. I'd also like to pause for a moment this Memorial Day weekend and recognize the many men and women of our armed forces who have served in the past or are on active duty today. While I realize we're of course here to celebrate the accomplishment of the graduates before us, I also want to take this opportunity each year to say thank you to our servicemen and women as well as their families. Thank you. Many people here today have helped and supported these seniors to get them to this important point in their lives. To thank your parents and family, as well as your teachers and the many other school staff members who have supported you, seniors, please stand and join me in a round of applause. Thank you, seniors. In case you're wondering, some of your mothers were waving just to make sure you know where they are and who they are. Zach Lincoln and Mr. Osowski have had a number of thoughts for us this morning. Among other things, seniors, you've had a chance to reflect on your high school years and also think about what the years ahead may bring. In the remaining time I have to serve as the principal of this graduating class, I want to share a final story with you. The piece I've selected this year is entitled, "Thanks for Your Time," and can be found with other inspirational pieces at inspirationpeak.com. Again, former English teacher, I can't help myself. I gotta cite that. It had been some time since Jack had seen the old man. College, girls, career, and life itself got in the way. In fact, Jack moved clear across the country in pursuit of his dreams. There in the busy rush of his busy life, Jack had little time to think about the past, and often no time to spend with his own wife and son. He was working on his future, and nothing could stop him. Over the phone, his mother told him, "Mr. Belzer died last night. The funeral is Wednesday." Memories flashed through his mind like an old newsreel, and he sat quietly remembering his childhood days. "Jack, did you hear me?" "Oh, sorry, Mom. Yes, I heard you. It's been so long since I thought of him." "I'm sorry, but I honestly thought he died years ago," Jack said. "Well, he didn't forget you. Every time I saw him, he'd ask how you were doing. He'd reminisce about the many days you spent over his side of the fence, as he put it," Mom told him. "I love that old house he lived in," Jack said. "You know, Jack, after your father died, Mr. Belzer stepped in to make sure you had a man's influence in your life." "He's the one who taught me carpentry," Jack said. "I wouldn't be in this business if it weren't for him. He spent a lot of time teaching me things he thought were important." "Mom, I'll be there for the funeral." As busy as he was, he kept his word. Jack caught the next flight to his hometown. Mr. Belzer's funeral was small and uneventful. He had no children of his own, and most of his relatives had passed away. The night before he had to return home, Jack and his mom stopped by to see the old house next door one more time. Standing in the doorway, Jack paused for a moment. It was like crossing over into another dimension, a leap through space and time. The house was exactly as he remembered. Every step held memories, every picture, every piece of furniture. Jack stopped suddenly. "What's wrong, Jack?" Mom asked. "The box is gone," he said. "What box?" Mom asked. There was a small gold box that he kept locked on top of his desk. "I must have asked him 1,000 times what was inside. All he'd ever tell me was, 'The thing I value most,'" Jack responded. It was gone. Everything about the house was exactly how Jack remembered it, except for the box. He figured someone from the Belzer family had taken it. "Now I'll never know what was so valuable to him," Jack said. "I better get some sleep. I have an early flight home, Mom." It had been about 2 weeks since Mr. Belzer died. Returning home from work one day, Jack discovered a note in his mailbox. Signature required on package. No one at home. Please stop by the main post office within the next 3 days. The note read. Early the next day, Jack retrieved the package. The small box was old and looked like it had been mailed 100 years ago. The handwriting was difficult to read, but the return address caught his attention. Mr. Harold Belzer, it read. Jack took the box out to his car and ripped open the package. There inside was the gold box and an envelope. Jack's hand shook as he read the note inside. Upon my death, please forward this box and its contents to Jack Bennett. It's the thing I valued most in my life. A small key was taped to the letter. His heart racing, tears filling his eyes, Jack carefully unlocked the box. There inside, he found a beautiful gold pocket watch. Running his fingers slowly over the finely etched casing, he unlatched the cover. Inside, he found these words engraved. Jack, thanks for your time. Harold Belzer. The thing he valued most was my time, Jack thought to himself. Jack held the watch for a few minutes. Then he called his office, cleared his appointments for the next few days. Why? Janet, his assistant, asked. I need to spend some time with my son, he said. Oh, and by the way, Janet, thanks for your time. So seniors and other members of the audience, how do you view time? As you sit here today, what do you personally value most? As we were reminded in Oklahoma just days ago, both the time we have and what we value can change in an instant. Class of 2013, as I near the end of my thoughts for you today and address you as a group for the final time, I can't help but think about what time holds for you and about what things you will value most in the days and years ahead. Seniors, I wish you the very best in life. I wish you happiness and I wish you contentment. I wish you patience. I wish you perspective. I wish you success and the perseverance to focus on what you value the most. Class of 2013, we're very happy for you. Congratulations on your graduation, and good luck to each and every one of you. Thank you. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to move on to the official presentation of the Class of 2013. Dr. Zimmern, it is my honor and privilege to introduce and present to you a remarkable group of young adults who have completed all requirements as set forth by the Ripon Area School District Board of Education for being in this graduation ceremony and receiving their diplomas today. Superintendent Zimmern, I present to you the Ripon Class of 2013.
Ladies and gentlemen, parents, guests, and members of the class of 2013. By now, you've seen in your program that the only thing left before our graduates walk across this stage to receive their diplomas is my speech. Now, I'm well aware of the limited lifespan of the balloons and potato salad awaiting all of you throughout this city. So I will try to make this meaningful but brief. On this, my last graduation speech, I would like to share with you 3 graduation lessons that I've learned through my life. So here goes. Believe it or not, I was once sitting on a folding chair on a football field waiting to receive my own high school diploma back in the Boston area. Weather-wise, it did not end well, especially for those of us at the end of the alphabet, as the fog rolled in off the North Atlantic Ocean, but that's another story for another time. I do remember, though, that as I sat through that seemingly never-ending ceremony with over 300 classmates, decked out in my cap and gown, I could feel the wind gently blowing as it is right now, except then it was gently blowing through my full head of brown hair. And there I sat, thinking about things that 17-year-old boys think about. Frankly, I never thought I'd get this old. And that's graduation lesson number 1 for you. You will be wrong a lot as you go through life. You don't know it all. so get over it. You'll change your mind about lots of things, so get used to it. In other words, always be open to new ideas and new experiences, and every day will be an adventure. Now, I must admit that looking back at my 40 years as an educator, and this being my 23rd high school graduation on the stage, by my rough estimate, I've listened to over 100 speeches, and some of them were quite memorable. And Lincoln, I think I'll quote that line. That was one of the memorable lines. I will remember it after dinner. But the two most memorable graduation speeches I ever heard actually came at my own high school graduation. And they were also the shortest, for which Mr. Bungie will be eternally grateful. The first speech was at a family dinner following that graduation ceremony of mine 44 years ago. My father told me the most important thing to remember was to choose my career carefully. He said that I should do something I loved, because 40 years is a long, long time to be doing something you don't like or you don't care about. That's lesson number 2. Work is a 4-letter word. We all know that. But my father also said, so is the word play. Find a job that brings playful joy every day, and you'll never work a day in your life. Not that it hasn't had its ups and downs, but being an educator has been a labor of love for me. And I'm thankful that I followed my father's advice. Now it's your turn to find your own labor of love. At this point, my mother leaned over and said, "Not so fast, young man," as she elbowed my father lovingly in the process. "It's not all about enjoying yourself," she said. "Whatever you may think, it's not all about you. That's selfish and useless." She insisted, find something that will make the world a better place than you found it. And although my mother was not a camper, far from it, in fact, she never saw an insect that she didn't run from, she heartily believed in the good camper rule. Always leave your campsite better than you found it. And she preached that constantly. That's graduation lesson number 3. Make a positive difference for others. When you look back at your life, you won't be proud of the money you made or the stuff you've accumulated or even the fun times that you had for yourself. No, what you'll look back and be most proud of is what you did for others. You will feel your life was worth living because you made the world a better place for others. Then my mother told me to stop chewing with my mouth open and save room for dessert because the speeches were over. And so there you have it. The 3 lessons that I learned at my own high school graduation have been my guiding light for these 44 years. Number 1, you will be wrong, so be open to new ideas. Number 2, choose a career that you love. Number 3, make the world a better place for others. Being an educator met those criteria for me, and that will also be the case for a few of you, I'm sure. But for the rest of you, you will walk down different paths. So I plead with you, choose your path wisely. Your happiness will depend upon it. Nobody can make that decision for you. So good luck. And that's it. No more speeches. Let me close by wishing each and every one of you the happiness of a productive life, the respect of your fellow human beings, and the love of your family. And now, Mr. Chernagel, for one last time, on behalf of the Ripon Board of Education, I hereby accept your certification of these students as having met all the necessary requirements for being awarded a diploma from the Ripon Area School District. Best wishes and congratulations to the class of 2013. Now for the moment you've been waiting for, let's get on with the presentation of the diplomas.
Okay, first group of seniors, go ahead and move into position. I do have 2 informational notes for the audience as they line up. First, the graduates will proceed across the stage, of course, from my left to my right, having their picture taken by photographers on 2 occasions. Interested parents who'd like to come down to the barricade area there can go ahead and take a picture. They'll then return to their seats. Second, at the end of the ceremony, when the graduates leave, it's customary to stand until they've left the seating area. Thank you and enjoy.
Amanda Marie Astrand. Craig James Bulkey. Kenton William Barber.